Welcome to the Glaziar Gamble podcast. Welcome back, everybody. This is the podcast of gambles that is Glaziar, and
Realize you
we
can't say anything unless I say something. So
perfect. Now you saw the sign too, and we're talking about Madam Web today.
can't wait for the title of this episode because it's just got to be the most clickbaity thing to get someone to click on this.
I did want to. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, radio. I listen to quite a bit of it, especially now with my new job. I have a lot of time to just sit with like a headphone in and
Sure.
just listen. One guy that I listen to a lot, unfortunately lost his job. So I do want to stress to people, because I listened to a speech from Power Trip radio show that I listened to today, just
Sure.
talking about the importance of, putting everything that you have into stuff, and, taking your vacation, making sure you take your vacation days, work hard as long as you can, but don't work a minute past. If you don't own your job, the people that are above you don't care.
Yeah, people were
And
talking this so that there's this concept going around about quiet quitting.
yeah, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Essentially you just kind of get through your day and do what you need to do,
Do the
but don't do
bare
anything
minimum.
don't do anything extraordinary. I guess like don't go over the top. So
But I
there's
wanted to
no
attribute
yeah.
that more to, like, I care about this. It might seem like, just like a for fun podcast that
Right.
like
I
two
actually
guys are doing.
just
Um,
saw that you posted something in Discord like almost 2 years ago, like
yeah,
October 2 years ago. So like it's almost been 2 years since we've been doing this, or 3 years. Good Lord,
right. So we might not
2021.
have like a
So
ton of subs. We might not get a bunch of views, but we do appreciate like everybody that does like and sub and do all that stuff, and comments especially. But yeah, I for one, for I care about this sort of thing all the time, and I think we have the benefit of doing something where we don't have a boss. Like technically, like YouTube could just delete it if they wanted, and we could
sure.
just be screwed. But like you get to do it and put whatever you want into it with no punishment, and it's kind of nice. So I just wanted to like appreciate what we have here, and I want
Yeah.
everybody to just want to say thank you to everybody, because you never know when, could go to work tomorrow and say your job's done. So
Right.
yeah, want to start off with that, but it does kind of lead into what we're talking about today, which is Madam Web. Um, Speaking of people that seem to put no care into something that you should care a lot into, like, not just Dakota Johnson.
Right.
Like, her interviews made it, a lot of people were like, I don't think she knew she was in a superhero movie. I don't think she
Yeah.
cared.
Cared really, yeah.
That seems to
Whereas
be,
you see Sydney Sweeney's little thing, and she's like, "Yeah, so I read the comics, and like Jessica or not Jessica, Julia Cornwall or whatever, she's like, yeah, she's like upside down a lot, and so I wanted to make sure that we did that upside down scene a lot, and like she paid attention to the small part of her role, so I was like, whereas Dakota Johnson was like couldn't name any Spider-Man movies,
right,
so
very
uh,
similar to like Gwyneth Paltrow didn't even know that she was in a movie with Spider-Man. And
yeah,
it's I get it. Like, it's not every actor's there for the love of the art. Like, some people are just there for a paycheck, and that Dakota Johnson has had that reputation on multiple sets she's been on. Don't want to like say anything defaming, but like that just seems to be the consistency, and that seems to be the
sure,
way it was for Madam Web. Is either a lot of people didn't want to be there, but like she for sure didn't want to be there.
yeah,
Um, it was it was not great.
right,
We'll just, we can sum that up there. I think the lowest score we've given anything was that Black Widow
five
with like a
something,
five or
five and a
six,
half,
five and a
yeah,
half.
five, yeah, something like that, right?
Um, this movie started out okay. The first 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, I thought the first 5 to 10 minutes were okay, and I actually didn't mind. I know you said that like kind of like the way they shot the scenes was kind of like what the hell, like very
Yeah,
confusing, kind of go
it
back
was
and
like,
forth.
I feel like taking acid, but all the bad things about taking
Yeah,
acid.
right. And
Like
so I
none of the
saw it
good
as
stuff.
like she doesn't know what the hell's going on, and we don't know what the hell's going on, but that's just the entire movie. Um,
Right.
but the first 10 minutes, I was like, I kind of took it as like they wanted this to kind of make no sense.
Hmm.
And so I was like, okay, well then they did a good job of that at some
Yeah.
moments. So yeah, I didn't mind the first 5-10 minutes of it. And then I don't want to trash the actor that plays Ezekiel Sims, but your main antagonist and your main protagonist are very just the way they deliver lines and the way they speak is just very monotone.
Yeah. He
Both of
never
them.
once sounded
Both of them.
intimidating,
Yeah,
anything.
they and Dakota Johnson is like just that's just the way she talks or whatever. So like it's very there's not like up and downs. It's kind of like this the whole movie. So
Right.
yeah, once kind of Ezekiel Sims came in, I think it just kind of went downhill
Yep.
from the movie, and that was about 10 minutes in or
It was
so. So
like when you go to like a high school play, a lot of the line delivery is you're like they're trying, but the
right,
emotion that is supposed to be presented here is not coming through. And Ezekiel Sims, I think, came through that way for me a lot, where it was like
sure,
that line is supposed to make me like scared or make me feel like this
right,
person is intimidating or threatening, when it
right.
just it seemed like what's that? Is it The Room? Was it the with Tommy Wiseau? Oh, great story, Mark. Where
No,
that have you seen that movie at
no,
all?
I
It's
don't think
like a
so.
very famous movie just for being so bad people love it. And his
Sure,
delivery was like Tommy Wiseau.
sure,
It was bad to the point it was comedic. We were sitting next to each other, and there were times I definitely laughed at moments that weren't funny, and
right,
that was mainly why is because it's like this is ridiculous. Not just some of the plot things that were ridiculous. It
right,
was straight up delivery. And one thing Sony has done fairly well, I think, is their use of audio. I know people that have watched our other episodes know I love picking apart the audio, the
sure,
choreography, the lighting. It's fun to when people use all the things you have, like John Wick, for example, the first one
sure,
uses all of that and
right.
makes like a great piece of art.
Right. That's one thing that Black Panther I think excels far between like most Marvel movies. Guardians of the Galaxy is another big one where the soundtrack of the entire movie is just like peak
And
throughout the whole
visuals,
thing. So
like
and
use of
visuals for
different
both of those. Right.
camera angles and stuff is also why I think Hawkeye was way better than
Sure.
people expected, is because you used stationary cameras, you use so much
A
like
lot of car
different,
chase things too. Yeah.
yeah, like you use different methods during times where it might not have been expected to create something that was like appealing to watch
Sure.
beyond just what's happening. So it was one thing Sony's always done well is audio. And this movie, like the soundtrack, the audio, the score didn't match what, like,
Right.
even when I didn't we went in with super low expectations due to what
Right.
everybody's reaction was. But I was expecting some parts, like usually lighting is terrible for Sony. The lighting was probably the best lighting they've had in any Sony movie.
Right, yeah, Venom was dark. You're gonna check out Morbius on March 1st. So you're gonna get your it's Morbin time
It's
fix.
Morbin time. But the
But
audio has always been there, in my opinion, for Sony.
sure.
Like good use of score, good use of soundtrack, or either or. But both soundtrack and score in this movie were not really
Right.
appealing, didn't suck you in.
Well, here's
Sometimes it was
one
like not
thing.
there.
Usually in the third act of movies is when the heroes come together and you see like the outfits, right? Like you
Yeah.
see the outfits and the uniforms all come together and you see them do their like power skill set and come together. And usually there's just a banging like hip hop track, right? Like something that just the action is going to be insane and it's going to be a fun watch. But because of what Madam Web did and the fact that you really don't see them in their costumes at all, there was
Yeah.
no like final like act three kind of peak moment for
I thought
that.
people might have
So
been exaggerating with like the amount that they're in costumes, but no. You less than 30 seconds. That's how often you see them in
yeah, it's
costume.
probably like the minute in the beginning. That's
Yep,
literally it.
that's
And
it.
it, and okay, to go back to that scene, I had some issues in regards to in that scene, Ezekiel Simpson's like fully white hair,
Yeah,
and he's just like frantically trying to stop these teenage girls from what happens in the vision. And I'm like, dude, you got like 10 years, man, until like why
right.
you gotta do this. So like, I don't know. That's just bizarre that he's like freaking out and he's got no white in his hair, maybe like one
Well,
streak
hey,
or something,
if
but
you
like,
got to see how you died, you'd think about it all day too.
yeah, exactly.
And that was about how he delivered that line.
Yeah,
Even as he's killing people, he just, believe
yeah,
me, you'll thank me for this.
right.
It
Yeah.
was just it was very, very strange choices overall. And to the choice, like, this is not connected to the Sony
Any
universe or any
universe.
universe of
Yeah.
Marvel characters. They most likely won't to stay all these things and then end
Her
it the
web
way they
connects them
did.
all. Her web connects them all on the poster,
Right, her web
whatever.
connects them all to who Madam Web is in the comics,
Right.
to all of that, and then end the movie the way they did, and then say, yeah, no, this is like, does that
Right.
mean they expected this to be its own standalone, really successful series?
Like Blockbuster. Yeah, I
I
don't
don't know
know.
what they expected because a group of people sat down in a room and said, this is exactly what we wanted.
And this is what the people want too. Like,
Right, right.
right,
They put this out as in like, this is exactly what they wanted to create as a movie. There's no way that somebody should actually believe that this is what
right.
you would want from a
I
movie.
think
Because
Sony in general just didn't grasp like what people wanted because like they did Venom, right?
Mhm.
And there's a following for Venom, and so that was pretty. I mean, it was the highest grossing superhero movie in November until like Joker came out
Yep.
or something like that. So they had that following for Venom, and then they announced Venom 2 and it's Carnage, right? Like the post credit scene had
And people were like, we're
what's
finally
his name?
gonna get the violence from Venom that we
Right.
didn't have in the first one.
Right. And so like you had that moment to do that R-rated, but they're chicken shit and wouldn't do it.
Mhm.
And then they're like, you know what? Let's keep this universe going and let's do Morbius. And whatever you want to say about the film, it's people don't like it, critics didn't like it, audience didn't mind it. Maybe that's just the meme of it. But like they should have like realized that okay, Venom was successful. Who do people want next? And that probably would have been Kraven. But now they did Morbius, they did Madam Web, and now they're finally doing Kraven. And it's like, dude, it's too late now. Like you gotta like
People will show up
understand.
for Kraven, but not nearly as many that would have had you done Kraven first.
Right, right. So if you would have gone Venom to Kraven and you made Kraven R, like if you would have done Venom first and then you would have done Kraven, but then you were like, all right, Venom was PG-13, let's just test the waters and do Kraven rated R. Then you would have known that, oh shit, let's do Venom, Let There Be Carnage rated R. And then it's like, all right, well, so we just have this little R-rated section of whatever, and we don't have Morbius, we don't have to do the shit post-credit scene. We have Madam Web, not great, but Venom still is in No Way Home.
Right.
Like Venom is still in No Way Home because of Let There Be Carnage. So I don't know. They're biting off more than they can chew. The web is too big for them.
Well, and
Uh,
not only is the web too big, but they don't seem to grasp, I mean, even what makes a good superhero movie. They didn't even say Peter Parker's name. His
yeah,
name is, and they don't tell you. They
right,
Ben, who is this new girl? Who's this new lady? They
right,
don't say her name.
right,
They don't like, why? What are you trying to hide? Are you trying to make sure it doesn't connect? We
right,
know who her name is. It's not like
right,
fans are going like, "Ooh, I know who
right,
that is."
right,
Like, unless you're revealing an actor and you're gonna reveal like a cool actor playing that, or you're going to do something with Peter Parker later on, there's
right,
no reason to hide it unless you're going to do something with it later. So to
right,
hide it and then do nothing, is basically telling like it becomes a joke.
Right.
And like one of the a huge thing for me this I don't want to tear this movie apart just the whole time because there were a couple things that I did like, but
Adam
not
Scott
much.
and Adam Scott. I thought the all the girls did okay in each of their roles. I think like
Yeah.
they were held back by their
By writing,
lines
by
and
writing and
their lines
directing.
and plot, but they each were very different characters. You got like the cocky, confident one, the shy, timid one, and you got the smart one. And
And
that
then they
you
all
should
do
have
have things that in common too.
right. And so you should have like expanded on that, like built them, not just been like, oh, okay, they're just smart, shy, and confident. Like,
Like so movies in general are cheesy, right? Like
right,
movies in general,
sure,
if you think about the movie as you're watching it, it can feel cheesy. That's
right,
why a lot of people don't have what it takes to be actors because they'll laugh or feel uncomfortable while doing the lines.
right,
Superhero movies are extra cheesy. Like that they're just inherently extra cheesy. This movie was beyond that.
right,
And so like you have little portions of it that are okay, but when you make when you get beyond that cheesy superhero-ness, you all of a sudden aren't being taken seriously, and people are going to start thinking about like all the things wrong with it. Like when you have a bad movie, people are going to tear apart things they wouldn't have noticed before.
right.
But one major thing, so obviously they made Dakota Johnson the front runner. You mentioned Adam Scott, one of his worst roles, yet he did a great job.
Yeah, I thought he did a great job in this. He's probably if I had to pick anybody, my shining point was probably Adam Scott in this. I
And
think
his part wasn't even that big.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So,
but so they picked Dakota Johnson as the center. I think the woman who played her mother in the beginning also did pretty good. There was
sure,
the scene where they're fighting over the spider, not great,
right,
but her overall after that, she did a good job.
right.
Um,
Also, there was no like excessive like Ezekiel Sims was like 3 feet away from that guy when he shot him, and there should have been like massive blood splatter, but well, whatever. It
but
was
again,
nothing.
Sony's too scared
Right.
to try anything or go
Right.
beyond it.
Like
And
her face should have been painted, but whatever.
um, but so again, Dakota Johnson, whatever you think about her, she's still, a big name.
Right.
You were gonna most people are gonna recognize her. A lot of people didn't when I like talked about it with people at work. They were like, "Who's Dakota Johnson again?" A lot of people were like, "Oh, 50 Shades of Grey." That
Right.
yeah,
That's
same one.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, people she's recognizable, but not like exactly how I've just said Marvel should go. Like that's the biggest. Like her level of fame is about as big as they should go if they're trying to set a new universe up.
Right.
But anything bigger, then you do have to put a heavier focus on their character because that's the money makers, like Adam
Right.
Scott and Sydney Sweeney.
Right.
Sydney Sweeney, it was like they forgot, like we have one of the most popular, biggest young stars to bring people in, and like okay, so we've been called MCU supporters,
Right.
whatever. Like you guys just this is the MCU support,
Right.
whatever.
We praised the Marvels before it got on Disney Plus, and everyone's like, "Oh shit, this movie's not
We
bad. This
also,
movie's good."
loved Miss Marvel,
Right.
She-Hulk. We talked positively about those. What if we
Right.
liked Kahuri and stuff, but
Right.
men are the most common Marvel fans.
Right.
It's still like 75% of all ticket sales are men.
Sure.
Not only is Sydney Sweeney like a huge star, but she's also gonna bring men in that don't care about superheroes. Like, let's just be honest, there's gonna be
Right.
guys that go like, I want to see Sydney Sweeney.
Right.
They forgot how much pull she had, and they were
Yeah.
like, she's hosting SNL soon. Like,
Yeah.
I know Dakota Johnson did too, but
No amount of Sydney Sweeney could have saved this movie too. That's the
right.
right.
And
But
you could have at least again expanded on those three girls,
right.
all three of them, because like you said, like all three of them did a good job.
Right.
It's the
They
fact
all
that
were held back. Like
they
they
were
all were
all
held
held back by writing, directing, and the
100%.
person who's supposed to be leading those three girls.
Right.
And you could have focused on those three, but especially could have like expanded on the fact that like, whoa, we have a big name in this movie. How about we focus on this big name a little bit more because that's a lot of who
She
people are
wasn't
here
even
to
like the
see.
lead girl. She was like the second lead girl, like
Right.
in the entire thing
And
too.
the
So
reveal, like when they revealed the details about their characters, they revealed hers first and then skimmed over and went to the other two.
yeah,
So it was almost like they were like trying to say like, no, no, we know she's a big name, but
we
please
don't want her
don't.
to outshine the lead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can't let her outshine. So let's actually like push her down.
right,
That just a lot of really dumb, weird decisions put
right,
throughout this whole movie that eventually made like a collective pile of crap.
right.
And even there was even points that was predictable in the
Oh yeah,
final scene. She they're fighting the villain. Very like I've seen a lot of people tear apart that final fight where she finally like uses her powers, but
yeah,
major event happens and I look over at you and I was like, all right, this is what's gonna happen next. Here it comes or whatever. And
yeah,
then next scene just boom happens and it's like,
yeah.
okay. But then it was after that I mentioned that I like the in a tweet, I think I said that I also didn't mind the last 5 minutes.
Sure,
The last 5 minutes kind of set you up for another one of these movies or where they would go in the like
sure.
next project that they're in. Apparently they're not going to be in it, but they set it up like there was going to be more and that Madam
Right,
Web was now going to be like running these three girls and like you
right. Sure.
none of it.
Stopping crime, like with them. Yeah.
None
So
of it, which is also Madam Web being an anti-hero is just so dumb. She needs to
yeah,
be a villain.
it's just weird. Yeah. I know we you kind of like the ending because it looked like she was looking out the giant glass window and it looked kind of like the Sanctum Sanctorum.
Yeah.
And I mentioned like when she went back to the Amazon or whatever, and she met the spider people or the I forgot the name of it. But where the guy like knocked her soul out of her, and I was like, dude, if they were in like a good relationship with Marvel, like this was the perfect opportunity for like Brother Voodoo to have
Mm-hmm.
been that person and do the freaking Doctor Strange soul thing to her and I don't know, and then just kind of like she could have used those powers to like I don't know. It was just a missed like I could see
Missed
there
opportunity for
yeah,
sure.
I saw there could have been a like potential of that. And I was like people ask me, "Oh, who is Madam Web?" And I was like, "Well, she's kind of like the Doctor Strange of like the Sony universe, like the Spider-Man universe."
Mm-hmm.
And like and they're like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Well, all of this is like just a cheap like attempt
I
at
think a fan made movie probably is better.
right. Yeah.
Just story wise. I don't obviously the fan might not have all the little details fanned out as well, but overall the story wise probably could have been done better by a fan. Just
Right.
especially with actual relationship between Sony and Marvel.
Right.
But without that, Sony could have found a way to make it work. And yet instead they were like, nope, gonna still be stubborn, not work with Marvel, gonna do it our own way.
Right.
And now they like financially took a huge hit from this.
Right.
Kraven is gonna have to be like they're saving
Yeah, it's
Spider-Man
gonna have
4
to.
and
Yeah.
Kraven is gonna have to save them.
Well, Spider-Man 4 is even like Spider-Man 4 will be good.
And
Like
they have
it's
Disney's backing with Spider-Man.
because yeah, exactly, exactly. But Kraven and Venom 3, which I think are both on dock for this year, like you gotta get a win because like
Venom
you're
3 has to
dropping
be good,
you're
man.
dropping L's, man. Like and
I
so
he's out I mean outside of Green Goblin, even including Green Goblin, people that aren't comic book fans probably know Venom more than any other Spider-Man
right,
villain.
right.
You
Like Doc
can't
Ock maybe,
you
like
shouldn't
those two.
miss. You shouldn't
Right,
miss on that. Like you're wasting again, just like with Madam Web, you're wasting so much potential. You could have had these exact same actors, you could have had the exact same characters and still made a better movie had you just used the comics, tried to make connections. I don't know what it was at whatever point they decided, no, we're not gonna connect this movie. We're just gonna
see,
make
and
crap.
here's what makes me wonder about that decision because my thought, and I've been standing at the top of this hill, like flag up trying to like wave Marvel down to do this, but um my hope is that they Marvel came to them and was like, you need to make this not tied to anything. Like you need to make this its standalone, whatever it is, however well it does, it just needs to be its own thing, not tied to anything possible. Because now technically there's a universe that um the Venom universe, which Morbius is in, because it's just that's is, and then like that Venom was tied to the MCU, so therefore like Morbius technically tied to the MCU, Vulture tied to the MCU, but Madam Web needs to be its own thing. I don't want it to tie with anything
And now they can
because
cast Sydney Sweeney as Black Cat.
exactly, that is my hope. That is my hope. I'm
Is that what you're gonna
waving that.
say?
That is exactly what I was gonna say, dude. It's such a perfect casting choice that like
Vanessa Kirby, Invisible Woman, Sydney Sweeney, Black Cat would be
it's
like the two best
Norman
castings of
Reedus
2024.
Ghost Rider, like that,
Yeah. Yep.
like just I'll die on this hill.
Norman
So
Reedus, Ghost Rider. There's a couple characters where an actor just immediately jumps to your mind and also jumps to 90% of everybody else's mind. It's like, yep,
right,
that's the one. That's who should play that.
right,
That like like Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan. Now, when people think Killmonger, that's all
right.
they're gonna picture because he's
Oh
just
yeah,
perfect.
that person,
I
right,
don't know if anybody could nail Killmonger as hard as he did
right.
Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. Like
Charlie
even
Cox,
even like TV shows, cartoons, video games, Iron Man looks like Robert Downey Jr.
yeah,
now.
yeah, that's all it is. They
Like
they they changed Nick Fury in like 2017, so that Nick Fury's black in the comics. So
right, he just some characters just perfect it. I think Sydney Sweeney Black Cat, I agree, it would be almost a perfect casting, if not a
yeah,
perfect casting. And
right,
whatever leaves Madam Web behind, because
yeah,
now
exactly,
with everything that you've said, everything the actors have said, everything Sony has publicly put out, just like DCU with the Flash and Aquaman saying that these movies don't care or like don't
right.
matter,
Shazam 2, another one in
how did
that
you expect
mix.
people to show up to this movie after everything you
Right,
said?
right,
It's just very weird to expect that it even was going to do anything, and it didn't. I mean, it made $8 million in its first day,
right,
which I don't remember the exact budget, but I guarantee it was
right,
more than that.
right.
That's
Yeah,
probably how much it cost per day for some of the actors. Like,
right. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that Sony is just and Marvel, Disney, sorry. Disney had to kind of save face because with the Madam Web news and how poorly it was done,
and people
people
connect Sony
people
products to Disney.
still right, they still associate it. Oh, it's a Marvel movie. It's woke or it's bad or they're trying to do another female movie and that's why it flopped. And seeing all the comments on like Twitter or whatever, or just social media being like, "This is why the Marvel's failing," and it's like, no, dude, they're like, this is Sony. This isn't MCU at all because people keep saying that the MCU is dying, and I'm telling you, it's not. It's just it's not
One of the comic book guys I talked to at work said, I don't, same thing that we're saying. Like, I don't get why people think Sony is the same. Like, this is
yeah,
Sony who's the problem, not
right,
Disney.
exactly,
They just connect Marvel and Marvel. They don't want to think about it. People, it's
right.
just like a headline. People
It's
read the headline and think they know everything.
in association with Marvel. And so
Right.
it's like, oh, we have the rights to the character, this Marvel character, so we are doing a movie with this Marvel character, which we have the rights to, but it is
Yeah.
not Disney
And when you have
as
crossovers
Marvel.
like Tom Holland, Spider-Man, people are like, no, what do you mean? They're the same.
Yeah.
Because people don't pay attention to that, which I don't know, they don't have to know all the details, but they should know. Sony is the problem, not Disney.
Right. Right.
Um, I do want to let's talk about like a thing or two. It doesn't have to be a lot positive because
Sure.
we kind of yes, we've crapped on Sony, we've crapped on them before. We crapped on Dakota Johnson. She doesn't necessarily deserve that. So,
Right.
um, we mentioned Adam Scott.
Right.
I like the fact that they did improve the lighting.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, there was a lot of sunny scenes. So a lot of
uh,
outdoor sunny scenes.
they seemed to have adopted the Disney current timeline where they just force the movie to move forward super quickly.
Right.
Not a huge fan of that, but I think there was never a point visually where I was like, this is absurd.
Right.
This is stupid. So I do think they did a good job in terms of effects.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, and I think the budget actually was pretty cheap. I think it was like 80-ish mil, I think. So in comparison for a superhero movie, that's pretty light.
Yeah.
And so uh I mean, good for them to keep the budget down. It was very like there wasn't that much special effects, like you said. So no, I thought they did well all up until like that like final scene. I think Ezekiel Sims' power set was very up and down in that final scene.
Yeah.
So where all of a sudden he can do some things and he can't do other things. But that's kind of like Sony in a nutshell with power
The
scaling. So
costumes were also very good when they were in them.
yeah, so those like that minute and 12 seconds you got of the costumes throughout the whole movie, they were really good too. Yeah, dude. I mean, all three of their costumes were sick,
Yep.
but you barely saw them.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know. That
But
was pretty
honestly, that's like all I have in terms of positivity for the movie because everything else was not good.
right.
Um, what would you give this movie out of 10?
On Twitter, I gave it a. I thought three was too much, but I thought two was too low, so I gave it a two and a half,
Okay.
2.5 out of 10.
In my mind, 4 is the lowest that you can give a mediocre movie. That
Right, four, five, six.
as soon as you like, yeah, 5 and 6 is what you would give like an average movie. When you think background movie, I don't really care about. Maybe I've seen it before to the point where I'm just like numb to it, or just a
Sure,
movie you've seen once where like it was fine. I might never watch it again. I might watch it again, but not pay
sure.
attention. That's like a 5 or 6. Um, I think once you go below a 4 is when you have to start saying like something is wrong.
Right,
If it's below a 4, they did something overtly wrong to
sure.
make this movie. Um, I would probably normally I think every single time we've rated something, I've rated it higher than you.
Sure.
I've looked back at it, usually like you give it a 6, I give it a 7. You give something an
Right.
8, I give it a 9. I
Sure.
think No Way Home is the only one where you rated it higher. Like
Yeah.
I gave No Way Home like a 7 and you gave it like a 9, so we
Yeah.
get
I,
it.
I'm for the nostalgia, man. Like
Yeah.
I'm for the nostalgia and the callbacks and the stuff like that because that was like my childhood. But this
I'm
movie had
pretty
none of it.
I'm pretty
So
sure that's the only movie. Otherwise, every single movie and show, I think I've rated higher.
sure.
Well, we can write a second one down for lower because I would give this movie a 2.
Sure.
I don't
Sure.
like 3 would be if they would have like expanded on the 3 girls.
Right.
That would have bumped it up to a 3 to me. Or,
Sure.
the delivery of lines was better.
Right.
Maybe they didn't make me feel like I was having a really bad trip. Just something like give it a half a point here, half a point here. But every single detail about this movie that would be enjoyable. I just love movies in general. So
Sure.
I'm never gonna give anything a 0 because, I'm happy to
Right.
be at a movie, especially in a theater.
Sure. Yeah.
But I mean, I can't think of anything like redeeming about it besides I like Adam Scott, I like Sydney Sweeney, I like all 3 of the girls. I liked all 3 of them and Adam Scott. So
Right.
it's like those 4 people I liked in the movie, you divide it by 2 because it's just a bad movie and you got a 2.
Got it.
Because
Yeah, that
that's the
checks
only
out to me. Right.
I don't know. It was really bad. Probably the one of the worst movies I have ever seen. Definitely the worst superhero movie. And
Yeah.
I'm usually more critical of superhero movies because again, I think they're cheesier than a normal movie.
Right.
But man, I could never bring myself to watch that movie again.
Sure.
Like
It's
you
not
couldn't
the worst
convince me
superhero
to.
movie I've ever seen because I did have to turn off Hellboy 2 at one point.
Yeah, see, but
So
this is I don't necessarily like outing myself, but I like the Hellboy movies.
sure. I liked Hellboy 1, but I had to turn off Hellboy 2 for some reason. So I don't know.
Yeah,
But that's it for me, really.
I
So
get it.
I love all
My
superhero movies.
cousins had to shut off Hellboy as well. My cousin Kyle left the theater.
Yeah.
So those ones, I get it. I get those ones. A lot of one-liners, but I think if Hellboy came out the exact way it came out then, and it came out right now, I think it would I think it would do well
Sure.
because I think that comedy is what a lot of people are looking
Right.
for.
And eventually they did do a remake with David Harbour, and that one wasn't great as
I
well.
didn't see
So
that one because I
I
liked
didn't
the
either.
first one.
Right.
So I was like, I don't need to see it because I wasn't one of the people that hated it.
Sure.
But quick little note again. So again, we didn't like it. Average it out, we would give it like a 2.5, 2.25, whatever you want to
Sure.
give it quarter points, but 2 to 2.5, 2 to 3 if you want to be generous. So now Madam Web now holds our title of worst
Lowest.
movie we've ever rated,
Right.
worst rating we've ever given. Um, I don't know what Sony's gonna do, but Kraven has to hit, Venom 3 has to hit,
Yeah, they both do.
and honestly now Marvel like Deadpool and stuff have to hit because this heart hurts their reputation even though it shouldn't.
Yeah. Even though like I don't know. I view it as like if Sony doesn't hit on their movies, that's just more ammunition for Marvel to be or Disney to be like, all right, we'll take them. Like we'll take it back. We'll take the rights back.
Yeah,
Like they're just Sony's just shooting themselves in their own foot. Like
right. They're shooting
so
themselves in their own foot and then going like, "Who shot me?"
right. Yeah. Yeah. And then it's all the Spider-Man just pointing at each other. And it's just all of them say Sony. So yeah.
Um, I am excited to hear what other people have to say though. If you do have an opinion, especially if you liked Madam Web, I especially want to hear from you. What did you like about it? But if you didn't like it about it, feel free to pile on in the comments. Feel free to tweet at us, let us know. At Glazier Gamble, at Tamer Glazier, at JJ Jaffet Plane. Um, whoever you want to tweet at, whatever we're fine with all of it. I like reading the comments. I went through and saw we had a few comments that I hadn't noticed before on old videos, so I went through,
Sure.
hearted some, liked them up. For some reason, YouTube thought a couple of them were against guidelines, so I had to like go through and approve, but YouTube also doesn't send you notifications that you have to approve them.
Sure.
So I was like going through and I was like, what are all these? And it was like one of the comments was clearly spam, but there was one that was just simple like great video. YouTube flagged it.
Right.
Okay, thanks. Great. I'm so glad I didn't get to see that person say great video when it happened. It
Sure.
was from like a month and a half ago.
Right.
But again, yeah. Make sure you like and comment on that. I apologize for the late episode this week. I totally thought I posted it. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It was Deadpool, Wolverine, and Fantastic Four casting news. And check out our other stuff. You got anything,
Look
Dad?
at it. Let's see here.
Yeah, 1
No.
minute. No?
No, got nothing.
All right. Well, you all look great today.
GG. GG. GG.
Don't wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella sure that I don't become you. Have no regrets, yeah, I'm tired of